Okay, so just let me share my screen. Okay, getting ready. There we go. Are you able to watch
Yep,
the
yep,
presentation?
yep, we
Yeah,
can see it.
yeah, we can see that.
Perfect. Well, hello, everyone. I am Salome Garcia, and I'm here to present my research project, the one that we've been doing for the last 3 semesters, which is titled, and I think it's long, but it tells you everything that it comes in it. And it says, Bridging the Gap Between Oral and Written Skills in ESL Learners. And my teaching context was with sixth grade students. There were about 28 students that are in my classroom, and they have a level between A2 and B1. This is in a private school here at Culiacan. So it was very interesting to see everything they had to share with me without them noticing. Why I was doing this research? Well, I noticed for a lot of years that students were really fluently in this level in their speaking, but when I was asking them to transfer this skill to a written task, they were hesitating and they were only using simple structures when they were writing. So that was like some like red flag for me that I needed to know why this was happening. Also, this was really important because during the sixth grade, I am preparing my students to present the Cambridge certifications at the end. So writing is one of the 4 skills that is being certified. So it was very important for them to have a clear way of writing and structures for them to achieve a good level and a good grade in English. And also, well, it was a desire to connect the oral strengths to the writing development. So how can I connect these that they already know that they do well and take it for them to improve their writing skills? So that was something, it was there for some time. And here I saw it like the best opportunity to start digging into it. Then the context was sixth grade learners with low writing complexity. The problem was that students were actively participating and enjoying speaking activities, but they were struggling when transferring those ideas from speaking to writing. So I came up with these 3 research questions. The first one being the factors that limit the students' use of complex structures in writing. The second one, addressing how incorporating oral language skills into writing instructions will impact students' written complexity. Being this like how instructions can change the way they write and the way they connect the oral skills to the written skills. And the third question was about my teaching practicing, like what was better or what is better for supporting students in transferring their speaking skills to the written skills. So having these on the table, I was ready to observe and to have these strategies and the action plan during my observations. So to address these problems, I implemented several strategies. The first one was rehearsals before writing and rehearsals in the oral form. Like if they were good at speaking, and actually I knew that they were good because we had previous like mock tests showing me these results. Now I needed to know how rehearsing before writing could be good for them to improve this skill. I also started using sentence starters and scaffolding for them to write better, peer discussions, sharing what they write to each other, and also modeling complex sentences, which was something that I noticed with observation that they didn't know how to use or how to do, or maybe they were not aware of them. So they were only using simple structures all the time, and they didn't know that they could connect those ideas to form more complex ones. So that was one of the things. Um, Overall, my approach focus on integrating speaking to the to the writing skills. And also I was providing guided practice and adjusting my teaching based on the students' responses. So now, like Alonso mentioned before, I was observing what they were doing and I was changing my way of delivering instructions for them to be able to improve the writing or to produce or to have a better outcome in the writing form. And then to evaluate everything that I was obtaining, maybe it's a little here, but I also like to write, even though I was using digital forms, I used to write. So I used a teacher reflection journal where I was observing my students and I was getting all this information about them using the oral language comparing to the written notes they were doing. Also, if they were using simple or complex sentences at the beginning of week 1 and at the end or at the middle in week 3. Then I was also using observation notes per student. I took 3 students that they were like my main ones. So I was working with these 3 students through the 4-week observation. And I started to notice the different skills and the different results they were having between the activities we were doing. And also, I had student writing samples, having some of them. I don't know if I can do it a little bigger here, which I don't think so, where they were writing at the beginning very short text. Then they started to have more complex writing or longer writings for them. And at the end, they were giving opinion writing. So I tried to use different ways for them to develop writing skills and to have forms to observe what they were doing and how they were producing better writing pieces. So they were evolving a little bit. Some of the key findings I had, I think I have 3 key findings, and they are a little linked to my questions. And the first one was the writing limitation. So what was causing them not to write? The first one was the gap they had in grammar. They had limited vocabulary depending on the topic we were talking about or they were writing about. And also they had a difficulty transferring skills. So they were not using what they can say to the writing section. And some of the activities we did here was that I record them, or I asked them to record themselves talking about, we talked about Jane Goodall, this lady who went to the jungle and lived with chimpanzees for her whole life. So we saw some videos about her and we created some opinions about her in the oral form. And then I asked the students to take an iPad and record themselves talking about her without any directions. So they were just talking and talking and talking. After that, I asked them to listen to their recordings and transfer exactly like they said it to a written form. And they were like, oh, so I can say all of this and I can write all of this, right? So before that, I was asking them to write biographies. So they were just writing, oh, for example, Frida Kahlo. Frida Kahlo is a painter. She is Mexican. She likes to do. They were doing simple forms. And when they saw that they were with Jane Goodall, it was like, for them, it was really cool to see that they could write more than they thought they could, right? Another one was the oral activities improve writing by increasing sentence variety, which is part of this result, and also supporting idea development. So they had ideas more clearly when they wanted to write. So at the beginning, if I asked them to write immediately before thinking what to do, they didn't know what to do, and it was hard for them. And the third one was the effective strategies from myself, that it was modeling what to do before writing, scaffolding how to write sentences in a better way, and the oral rehearsal that they had by recording themselves and by listening to their classmates and by having different results. So I think that all of these helped me obtain the results and the impact that I had with students and with myself. So in terms of impact, I observe important changes in both my students and also my teaching practice, which I think is really important. On students, it was very evident the increased engagement they had in writing tasks. At the beginning, if I asked them if the instruction was write about something that you like doing on the evenings, they were like, oh, writing, right? But now I was like, okay, so you have the opportunity to share activities that you like doing. So my way of presenting the activity changed. And for them, it was more engaging that way. So now they were asking me to have more writing tasks. Another of the impacts that I saw in my students was that they were writing more complex sentences. It was not simple anymore. They were connecting. They were using different connectors and different things to write better and to express their ideas. And the third one, which I think is really important, and I think it connects to most of, like Alonso, I already heard this from you too, is the confidence they have after this. And even if it was just 4 weeks, and I felt it was like intense for me and for them too, to have them in these like roller coaster of writing, talking, recording themselves, looking at what they can do. At the end, they were creating better outputs in writing. So their confidence was higher, and they were asking for writing tasks, which is something totally different from the beginning of the research project. And on my teacher and my teaching practice, well, this project, I think that it made me more aware of the importance of intentionally designing opportunities for skill transfer. I always work with them in a separate way. Like today, we're gonna be working with writing. Today, we're gonna be working with speaking, or reading, or listening. And now, after having this research and these 4 weeks, I feel the importance. I understood the importance of having them together, like working with different skills at the same time, and teaching them how to transfer from one skill to another, I think is one of the best things. Also, I shifted from the product to the process. Before this research, I was focused more on the final written product, not on how they were creating these writings. So that's something that really shifted on me. Now I place more emphasis on the process that myself, my students need to have in order to create something. And before this, I was waiting for them to write and share what they did. Now, I really don't need them to share it. I really don't need them to prove they can do it. It's only that they know how to do it. And the use of oral language as a foundation for writing is also another of the teaching practices that I'm taking from this. Having these opportunities for students to speak, notice what they do and also use it for different activities. What's something that I'm taking from these uh, projects? And what's next? Well, I really want to integrate oral to written activities more systematically and having more grammar and vocabulary support for my students. Continue to using scaffolding strategies. I think it's also important, not letting students go by themselves since the beginning. I need to give them like a path to follow from the beginning and not expecting them to know it, how to do it, without me giving them a little bit of examples or what to start from. And also, in the remaining or questions that I have, because yes, this creates more questions than what it solves. So now I really want to know, how can I sustain the writing improvement? Like, how can I continue to have more and more development with my students? How to adapt the strategies for different levels. As I mentioned in the beginning, in this classroom, I have students from A2 to B1. So having different strategies for them to be like developing their writing skills and for everybody to have the correct strategies, I think is a challenge for me as a teacher. And also because they are presenting different levels in the Cambridge exams. They are presenting from movers, ket, and pets. So preparing students in these three levels is really important in the writing form too. And how to refine assessment of writing complexity. So what can I do to assess them, to notice if they are really engaging with writing and really producing complex sentences. And after all, I just thank you for listening, and I hope that this works for you in your context, or you can have anything that you can take from this research, and I'll be happy to answer or to share any of my experiences during this time that we were doing this. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Salome. That's excellent job. Thank you very much. Well, before I have a comment, anybody maybe has a question? Alonso, go ahead.
One of my favorite things that you said, okay, and I wrote it. It says, give my students a path to follow. Wow. I love that. Okay. And I will steal it from you, definitely.
Take it. All yours.
Yeah. And you know, having a multi-level classroom is challenging. I believe that all that we are here as teachers, we have encountered with that situations once in a lifetime. And that is even more when you're in a private institution. It was like, I remember when I was teaching a secondary school in a private institution, and they decided to, start using Sistema Uno. Everybody knows Sistema Uno, right? Yes. Or AMCO. There you go. There are some kids that they had no idea how to deal with that level of English, and that is so frustrating. So congratulations, okay, Salome, okay, for having a multi-level classroom is challenging. Something that I need to observe, right? If I were you, well, I will add, on your tools, a self-assessment form. Yeah. Because that way you know what your students really, getting. And you talk about a standardized test, like Cambridge. And I believe that your writing task should follow that path, right? Okay, now we're writing emails because you know that's Cambridge. Now we have to write story, because you have Cambridge. Now you have to write, an announcement, okay, about a magazine, okay, whatever. Because in that way, I believe that the numbers of your data research, will be more reliable in that way, because when you have different tasks, because you talk about the Cambridge examination, right? Yeah. And standardized. Totally. In that way, because grading writing, we all know that is not easy. Mm-hmm. When we don't have a clear rubric, we need to have a rubric. So I expect this from my students, and I have to follow that one, because if we don't have that, then we start wandering off. And it's Juanito, I love Juanito, Juanito, right? And I start correcting Juanito because I like Juanito. Okay, but what I'm checking Peter is Peter, my God, he's a pain in the neck. So, and I start correcting everything from Peter because well, you don't really hate students. Well, sometimes we do, but we don't really tell them. But you start correcting a different way when we have. So, my suggestion is also that, right? Having a rubric is very, very important. And one of the things that really worked well for me for writing is storytelling, right? Storytelling
Yes,
really,
totally.
and kids love that. Okay, there you go. How do you? It's a question because I was surprised because you said at the end, your students were asking for more writing tasks. How do you do that? Can you share that to me? And that
Yes,
will be my final question.
thank you. Thank you for your comments. Actually, yes, the self-assessment was something that after doing everything, I said I need it. I need to have one of those so my students can give me more information. That's why I asked you that before. And how did I do? Well, I did this activity that I think it worked really good. I had stamps of all objects that you can imagine. Like I bought like 100 stamp bag. And what I did is that I put 3 stamps on their notebooks, and they needed to create a story with those 3 stamps. They can do whatever they want. It can be real, it can be fantasy, it can be whatever they want, but they need to write. So at the beginning, I just put 1 stamp and they wrote sentences. Then I put 2 stamps and they needed to create sentences and maybe a story between these 2 characters. And then I put 3, so it was a little more complex, and they started to create. Now they couldn't write sentences, only a storytelling. So they needed to create a story. With that activity, they were aware about the characters, about having a structure in the writing at the beginning, in the middle, conclusions, using those characters just with stamps. And that's the first picture of my evidence, because they love that activity so much that I still implement it like every week. It's my every Tuesday. That's how we start our day, by the stamp story, I call it now. So they were really excited about that. And I think it was because of the surprise, because they don't know what the stamps are going to be until they are ready. I just arrive and put the stamps, and they're like, okay, I need to write. And they don't have a time limit. I just, and I do it because I have like a spare time at the beginning of Tuesdays. So they are really excited. And actually, they don't take that much time now because they are practicing and practicing and practicing. So that was one of the activities that was like a success for my students to do. And I was also impressed because they didn't like to write before these activities started to be part of my classes. So that was one. And also, they love to hear themselves talking and writing after what they said. And they were like changing, like, Miss, I don't understand myself. I was like, oh, that's the thing. So now you need to create what you think you said. So that was another thing that worked. So I think that they got excited about those 2 activities. So maybe
Yeah,
you could use them.
yeah, that's right. Writing is not easy.
No.
Definitely not. It's not. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your question.
Thank you very much. Anybody else would like to ask a question or give a comment? Gisela first, and then Ingrid. Okay.
Hi, Salome. Congrats. I don't really have like a question, but I want to say that I agree with your idea about how process is more important than the actual result. So I wanted to ask you, how did you, I don't know, came up to that idea?
Well, after all the observations that I did, I saw that I didn't care if if they were like making sense at the end, or if they were presenting in front of the class, or if they were sharing with their classmates. I needed to know how they were creating sentences. So I said, okay, if I am grading writing, I am grading sentences, not the whole thing. So I am looking if they're using the correct verbs, if they're using the correct structure, if they're using the correct, I don't know, sense of the story. But at the end, if they have a really cool story that they can tell their friends or whatever they had at the end, I'm not checking if that makes sense or not. Is the way that they are creating and what is being missed when they are doing it what really impacts my rating. So that's why I said, okay, so maybe at the end, the product is not important, even though I know that in Cambridge or like these certifications, it is important. Actually, is what matters. But when students are starting to write, we shouldn't be telling them or we shouldn't be pressuring them to have a final product. I mean, that's something that I think it like pushes them and they don't like to be pushed sometimes. So if you just let them do whatever they can and feel like to, I think that has more value than what they have at the end. So that's why I came up with this conclusion after observing during these 4 weeks.
All right, thank you. Ingrid?
Hi, thank you. I was just thinking about something related, I think. I focused on confidence because you said that after your students started recording themselves, they were more confident to start writing. And I think that happens also to me. I don't know if that happens to you, that we are fluent maybe sometimes when we are talking, because fluency is something completely different when we are writing. And when we have a task that we need to write, we have the time to check what we did, to go and correct what we were doing. And when we are talking, we don't have that time. Do you think that's something that had an impact in your students, that they were just starting to talk and just producing whatever they have in mind, and then to listen to it, maybe they are actually fluent, but they started to hesitate to write because they were aware that they were going to be greater, or they were going to be exactly examining what they were producing?
I think so. Yeah. So yeah, I totally agree that they are, when we're talking, we just make mistakes without noticing sometimes. So when they had the opportunity to listen to themselves and to start like transferring what they were listening to what they needed to write, they were correcting themselves. And they were like, hey, what did I say? No, I did. And they were telling me, Miss, I did. Do I choose a present or the past tense? What is it? Is it a regular verb? And I was like, oh my goodness, they're asking me about the tenses. And that was something that was like shocking for me. And maybe they didn't notice they were doing it because they were correcting themselves in the process of transferring from the speaking to the writing. So yes, having that opportunity for them to check what they were doing and to notice that they can correct what they are writing without hesitation or without being afraid of, oh, I'm gonna write it wrong, I'm gonna have a bad grade. No, you're not gonna get a grade at the end. I just need you to do it and to finish the process of transferring something. So it helped them a lot in their confidence. So they were like, okay, so it doesn't matter if I talk correct or wrong. At the end, I can correct my writing and I can make it better and I can improve it. So yes, I think it was like a clue for them, for their confidence to grow.
Yeah.
Another confidence enhancer. Just play some videos about Donald Trump giving a speech, and that's a native speaker.
I know.
Speaks. There you go. That's one.
You can do
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, I know. Well, I also have kind of not a question, but a comment. Well, listening to you, I had, like flash back to some of my experiences as well. So talking about correction, about the importance of exams, and sometimes we have so many exams, and what do we do with them? We just throw them in the garbage. So we give maybe, I don't know how much time you have to spend on analyzing exams that you do after maybe every month or a few months, I know, like trimester or
Trimester.
exactly. So basically, you just show them exam, and they just, I don't want to see it, and that's it. And it goes to the garbage. So what I remember is I had a British teacher when I was at school. She made us to rewrite our written task because she was correcting with the red pen and everything with the marks. So we had to rewrite, and she would actually check again. And then if you make mistakes, she would mark and she would make you to write again until it is perfect. I don't know, it was maybe a conservative way in that moment, but recently we had an exam and I used this strategy, but just a little bit in different way. Well, I implemented, let's say, something. I asked my students to rewrite, but then we use these writing. So I give them exams. They copied, obviously, their written work, but already with corrections. But we had a new topic. We started before it was to write their routine. So they did a great job. They wrote, I wake up at 6 o'clock, I brush my teeth, and so on. So basically, the text was really good. They had a slight mistakes, maybe forgetting article and simple things. But the next topic was using linking words like first, next, after that. So this exam turned into a tool for me so they could see, okay, I wrote like this. And now I ask them to use connectors, these linking words, to improve their writing. And I also asked them the feedback, like to give to their peers because they came to the front to read. So we basically involve a lot of strategies, and it worked because they were like, teacher, this sounds much better and sounds like I have an advanced level. This is like kind of, repeating what they said. It's like, yes, it actually makes you to improve your level if you use the linking words. So maybe something similar using some parts of our exams could help them to reflect and maybe improve, work on what they have done already, and see how can they improve their writing. Well, maybe it could work for you if you could use
Yeah.
this strategy. So obviously you can take it. It was
Thank
just to
you.
share. Well, thank you very much. And what do you think if we do the same thing as Giselle? Is it correct to pronounce Gisela or Giselle? I'm not sure. But what do you think if we, again, come back in a few minutes so we don't get interrupted if Giselle needs more time? Okay?
Perfect. Yeah.
See you in the moment.
Thank you.